Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to do some work in the shop. We got the wife's JK. She had knee surgery. This is a manual. I've been driving it and the thing's all over the road. So I've been trying to figure out what is going on with that. She got to the point she goes, I think I can drive my Jeep. Oh no, not till I figure it out. So had the tire shop tell me once that the shocks are worn. And what I'm used to is, you push down and see how it bounces up, but it doesn't do anything. But I did try something else. I did this. So I'm still not convinced, but the tire shop hadn't found anything. I've been underneath. I haven't really been able to find anything that's wrong. There's a little bit of wear on two of the joints, but not enough to make it that much all over the road. And it's more at a higher speed. So one concept is, with the way these coil spring suspensions are, when you're hitting a bump, it makes the body rock, which then makes the, I don't know, it seems like it wants to dart off the road sometimes. So I'm a Bilstein guy, so I'm gonna put some Bilstein 5100s on here. I probably should have done it years ago. This thing's still running stock shocks. It has 2.5 inch budget lift on it, and it just got the spacers. So we're taking the spacers out. We're putting Bilstein 5100s in there. I've always been happy on any rig I put those on. Like I say, I should have done a long time ago. Then the other thing, which you probably can't see, here, I'll bring you over a little closer. Okay, the other thing I need to work on is I took this to do a poker run checkpoint up at Baber, and I wasn't really doing riding. I did do part of the trail system, but on my way back it started making, if you watched a lot of my videos in the past, when I take off slow, it has that high-pitched squeal sound, which is supposedly a harmonics in the secondary. And it was making that sound coming downhill, slowing down, all kinds of stuff. I put it in neutral and rolled down the hill. It didn't make any sounds. So I don't know, I'm gonna pull the clutch cover off, look in there. Hopefully I find something obvious, because I got a couple friends that are making a run up to the snow tomorrow, and I'd really like to be able to go to that, but if it's making weird noises, I don't know if I want to do it. So we're going to look at that today, and we're going to put some shocks on the JK, and we'll take you along. Well, the downside to a shop is you never have enough room. It don't matter how big you make it, you're going to run out of room. So I got most of the big cutting done on this. So where I keep it is over here on the other side of the boat, behind the two table saws, right where those tires are stacked. So to get to that, I have to move the Razor, and I have to move the General, and I have to move those tires. Why do you guys have so much stuff? Alright, so I'll find somewhere to move the tires, so I can move that thing, so I can put it away, so I can put the Razor back, and then I can make room to pull the General and the JK in here, and look at the clutch on the General and do the shocks on the JK. Alright, here we go. So I got the General backed into the shop, and let's see, get some light here where maybe you can see. I guess that's as good as we're going to get for light. So what's interesting is, on initial glance, I don't see anything jumping out at me. It looks like there's a little bit of a sheen on the side of the belt. So the weirdest thing is I've never heard it sound like this. So hopefully that's coming through on the camera. Let's see, maybe if I switch hands, get you closer. So that's, I find that pretty interesting, like that little shadow I'm throwing in there. That's pretty handy. So, I mean, the shivs don't feel bad, but that's, I guess that belt's glazed some. So glazed from doing low speed rock crawling, maybe. So I'm gonna pull that off. I'll look in here a little more. I'll go ahead and clean everything, blow everything off real good. There's a little bit of dirt in there. I noticed I had a little bit of leaking up here, so if you watch my videos for a while, you know I've blown belts and I ripped that area out up there, and I put a bunch of caulking in there. It looks like a little bit of seepage inside my cover, which of course is not good. You don't want any water on the belt. That'll make it slip. So I'll go ahead and pull that belt off. I'll go ahead and Scotch-Brite these with the green Scotch-Brite. And these. Blow everything down. Wipe it down with rubbing alcohol. And I'll examine this belt a little closer. And then look at this and seal up that. Put some more caulking on it, I guess, for now. And then make a decision on whether that belt's going back on or if I got to put a different belt on. Save that one for a spare, maybe. I don't know, but it's definitely, when I put it in reverse. Well, let me back up. Before I switched everything around, because right now the Jeep is in the shop behind this, so that I can look at this, and if it's good, I can load it up and I can go play in the snow tomorrow, and then I can start working on the Jeep. And if I don't get it done, it's fine, I can work on it when I get back. So I drove it around the property a little bit, up and down the driveway, and after a little bit of driving, I started to hear a little bit of that sound, which I could see with the loading machine puts on the belt, that maybe that is making that sound. You know, HunterWorks explained in one of his videos how they went to a smaller shaft or bolt or something like that on the secondary, and when they did that design, it actually caused the harmonics, but that's usually only a low speed thing. And I was hearing this, I was driving around the property, and then I would stop and just kept rolling to a stop. It'd go, and then you let off the brake and let it roll backwards, because I was on a little uphill, and then go, which is kind of similar to so I'm going to guess it's that. You don't see a bunch of black buildup on the primary, and I'll have to get in there and look at the secondary real close, but we'll pull that apart and look at that, and I'll let you know what I come up with. Okay, so I have this belt that was in my little bag as a backup one. It's a Polaris belt. Somewhere on here it says Polaris. Right there. Problem is, I don't remember putting a new Polaris belt in here. So I wonder if there's something wrong with this, and it's like one of my best ones, so I just put it in for backup. Little discoloration there. So I'm not sure what that is. Went ahead and cleaned it up anyway. It was in the bag there in the center console in that Kimimoto bag. And I went ahead and put this back together and spaced it that I was going to show you. But I blew everything off in there. I took the Scotch-Brite to the shibs, cleaned them all up, wiped it down with rubbing alcohol, blew everything down. I already said that. Then cleaned the belt that was on there. I took some dish soap, some warm water, and the Scotch-Brite pad. Went around all the sides, got rid of that sheen that was on there. It still seems to be more flexible than the Polaris belt. Because one of the things they say is you get that sheen on the side and it hardens the belt and then it won't grab right. But the amount of movement this belt has compared to that one, the way it feels when you push in the side, it still looked like that was the better option of the two. So I cleaned it, put it back on. I'm going to put this stuff back in the bag, go drive around the yard a little bit and see if it's still squealing real bad or not. And then we'll probably just run it and go from there. So I'll go ahead and get that done so I can go take a little ride around the yard. And then I'm still trying to get to the JK. Put some shocks on there today. Let's see what happens. All right, well, it seems to be better. I went around and around a little bit in the driveway. You can see out of the window here. It's still cold out there. Go up that driveway, down that one, do this loop going around here. So do that a couple times, and just like I did before I took it apart, it's not squealing. It just have the normal squeal, the normal that I always have when they first take off. But the other part's not doing it right now. So I guess it's ready for another ride. See what happens. So now maybe I can get started on putting the shocks on this thing. It's the General Dreams Coors Light clock up there says it's 4:02, so there's still time today. So we'll get after it. Here we go. Okay, so here is one of the stock back shocks, and they have these little pins through them. The bolts that just go in like that, and then here's the new Bilstein that goes on the back. So you see the stock one had the shaft up at the top with this plastic cover over it. The Bilstein they have set up upside down. See, they got the lettering right. That's the top. So you're going to have the rod down at the bottom. Not sure that I like that, because one of these shocks I have, must be the other one, under there has a big dent in it. So a rock had hit that one. So that means when the shaft is down, it's more susceptible to the damage that's going to actually hurt the shaft, which then the shock won't work right. The shaft is messed up. But I guess we're going to see what it's like, because I'm going to put that on there. And why Jeep set that whole thing up with this whole mechanism hanging way down here. I mean, this is where the link bar bolts in. So when do you need all of this hanging down below? I mean, you want as little hanging below as possible on a vehicle that's four-wheel drive and trail ready. So anyway, I'll slide this up in there, bolt it on. It is definitely longer, and I took some measurements of what I have between these wheel wells to see if the shock is what the limiting factor is that's stopping the droop. I do have a jack under the axle at the moment, so actually I could lower that. If it goes down, then it's going to tell me the shock was holding it. So I'll check that and see what happens. I can do that right now. I'll just go ahead and lower this. And it only moved a fraction. Okay, so the springs must be what's stopping the droop and or the bind of the link bars. So good news is it doesn't appear that it's the shocks, which is really hard on the shocks. Okay, so I'll go ahead and get one of those slipped on, although now I have to find bolts, because so this is the lip bracket, and these are the bolts that went through it. So now I gotta find bolts that are that much shorter to be able to put this back together. So dig through my goodie bin and hope I find one. Otherwise I gotta run to work and grab one. Pulled the shock off of the passenger side, and I gotta change my statement from the driver's side. So when I pulled that shock off, this thing popped free, and it went from 8 1/4 wheel clearance between the wheel well and the tire to 9 5/8. And here's one of the reasons I think the other side didn't change. If I can get under there and get the light in the right spot. See, I got the jack is kind of on the link pivot, so that's probably limiting its amount of droop. So what that does mean is that means this is not that good a design, and the shock is the limiting factor. Matter of fact, that side must have dropped some more also when this side went down, because I'm seeing that brake line is tight right now. Let's see if I can get a little closer so you can see it. You know how tight that brake line is. So this one over here is, yeah, it's snug too. Oh, I see the sway bar. So the sway bar is not going to let it go down much more. It could have hair. So it looks like what the guy needs. Oh, and the breather's tight for the case. So that's all good to know. That means this thing really should have longer brake lines, and apparently should have limiting straps, because otherwise you're counting on those shocks. Now granted, this one doesn't get used too much in a real off-road sense. This is the wife's Jeep, so you know, we'll go down snowy roads and we do a little exploring, but we don't do any real wheeling in this. And I could see, so I'm going to assume the front's going to do the same kind of thing. So maybe I'll measure these shocks before I put them on, so that I know what length limiting strap they need if I ever want to add a limiting strap. Alright, I'm going to do that. Alright, so I measured the new shock, and it's 25 inches from center to center, which these are supposed to be for a lifted rig, and they are. It is longer, but it is longer by 2 3/4 inches. So so it's not that it's the wrong length shock. That is just the design of the vehicle. Good to know. All right, we'll get this other one bolted underneath there and head to the front and see what it does. Okay, so I got the shock on, and see if I can hold the light still. So there's barely any room in here, and these bushings are so big that when you put the top and the bottom bushing on, there's no threads sticking out of the top. So what I wound up doing is I got a standard nut, because these have a lock nut, and then I put the new bushing on the bottom, which actually the instructions show this should be the other direction. Seems weird to me, but that's what it says. but I already had it on. So anyway, I put the new bushing on the bottom and one of the old ones on the top. And then I tightened it down with that setup and a standard nut, and I let it sit for a few hours. And then I took the top one back off, put the new bushing on the top, and there's just barely enough thread to get it started. And then you just crank that. There's very little room in here with this, but with a gear wrench, you just be patient and crank and crank and crank, and eventually you get it. So I got those on there, got the little lift thing off the bottom, so now I just have shocks. I don't have a spacer in there. So I'm excited to see how it's going to run, or drive I should say, because the stock shocks that were on it, which have been on it way too long, they had no compression left. I take them off. Well, here I can show you. So here's the stock shock, put on here, and then, well, that one has a little bit. Okay. Stand corrected. How about this one? Put it down here. Yeah. Okay, so that goes in awfully easy. And they're just barely going back out, super slow. But if I grab this with two hands and try to pull them out, they don't come out. So the rebound, yeah, the rebound works, but the compression is just blown out. Some of them were worse than those. So I'm imagining, like I said earlier, I'm a Bilstein guy, and I've always had good luck with them. So can't really see down in there. There we go. So they got a good looking shock. I do wish that they had put, get this where you can see it. I do wish they had put a flat spot on there so you could put a wrench on it and keep the shaft from turning, but for some reason that shaft didn't turn. But someday when you go to remove those, that'll probably be a pain in the butt. But if you're taking them off to put new ones on, I guess you could just put vice grips right on the shaft at that point, because you're going to throw them away anyway. And then the other thing I thought was kind of weird is back here. If I get down here, you see that? It's got the rod on the bottom, which I don't think I like, but that's the way they came, and I'm going to run them. I wish the rod was on the top where it's more protected, because down here you get rocks fly up just driving down the road. Granted, it's got a boot on there, but that doesn't really stop a rock too well. Anyway, I know it'll be an improvement, and I will let you know how they do. And I still got to take the General out for a real test run, but it's doing pretty good around the property so far. So anyway, we will continue this when I go for a drive and see how this thing handles, and I'll let you know. Well, the new shocks seem to be an improvement on the handling, ride quality, and all that. Haven't got a lot of miles on it yet since I put them on, but it does seem to be an improvement. I don't know that it fixed my issue of being kind of all over the road, but I do think it is an improvement, and it was money well spent. I will continue to try to figure it out, and when I figure out something else, I'll update it so y'all will have an indication if you're going through the same issue with your Jeep. All right, well, hopefully this helps someone out there. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share, and we'll catch you on the next one. See ya.